Good afternoon and welcome to the kickoff of the Fall Street Smart campaign. I'm Chuck Bean, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments. We're the alliance of 24 local governments that brings together leaders from DC, Maryland, and Virginia to address regional issues and challenges. And pedestrian and bicycle safety certainly qualify as important issues across the DMV. Today, we are here to launch Street Smart, a region-wide effort that combines education and enforcement to reduce traffic fatalities, especially those involving pedestrians and cyclists. The timing of this campaign following the end of daylight savings time is also fitting. As we know, 75% of all pedestrian fatalities occur after dark. And here in the Washington region, pedestrian crashes increase during the last few months of the year. We're pleased to have the following supporting agencies and individuals with us today from across the region. District of Columbia Mayor Muriel Bowser, the District Department of Transportation, the DC Metropolitan Police Department, Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles, Maryland Department of Transportation. Now nationally, pedestrian deaths reached a 40-year high in 2021, a harrowing statistic. And here in the Washington metro area, there were 93 pedestrian and 7 bicyclist fatalities last year. When we focus on the fact that each of those data points represents a friend, family member, or neighbor, we can all agree that one is too many. Given the unique nature of the Washington metropolitan area, our community is a shared one. And it's because of this, it's critical that we come together to combat these tragedies as a unified, interjurisdictional force. The Street Smart campaign was established as a joint effort between the District of Columbia, suburban Maryland, and Northern Virginia to help reduce traffic fatalities and make our roads safer for pedestrians and drivers alike. The fall campaign will include increased enforcement, which Assistant Chief Carroll will tell us about more shortly, as well as sponsored educational messaging online and across advertisements on television, buses, and transit shelters throughout the greater DC region. No matter your preferred transportation mode, we all have to work together to reach our goal of 0 pedestrian and bicycle deaths each year. So let's all be alert and be street smart. It's now my pleasure to bring to the podium District Director of Transportation, my favorite DDOT Director, Everett Lott. Mr. Lott.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And thank you, Chuck, for the introduction, those kind of words. As the director of the District Department of Transportation, I can tell you that there's a lot more people here in the city and here in this region that are walking, that are biking, that are scooting in the region more so than ever before. And so, as you'll hear that when the mayor announces shortly, that we are extremely happy to release our Build Back Better Infrastructure Task Force report. And you'll see how that feeds the ideas for building better infrastructure across Washington, D.C. and across the region, and how that will affect our communities. So while this shift is positive in many ways, it's become more important than ever that we design our streets in such a way for all users, and we re-engineer them in such a way so that inevitable human mistakes are not deadly mistakes. So in 2021, there were 732 crashes involving pedestrians and 413 crashes involving bicyclists in DC. Those numbers are far too great, and everyone deserves safer streets. So as I stand here, I am committed and I'm reminded of the stories of those whose lives who were cut short and who have forever been changed because of traffic-related crashes. I think every single one of us can close our eyes and picture people that we have known, friends, family members, neighbors, whose life needlessly ended far, far too soon because of a crash on our local roadways. So with this in mind, we are pleased to support our Street Smart public education campaign to keep everyone safe on our roadways. So DDOT is dedicated to protecting our residents, dedicated to protecting our visitors when they walk, when they bike, when they scoot, or when they drive here in DC. And this is achievable through Vision Zero road design, innovative infrastructure upgrades that reduces our speeds and by encouraging safer transportation options and practices. So on Wheeler Road and other high crash corridors, we are redesigning the streets to slow down speeding vehicles and improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. So some of the safety improvements along Wheeler Road that you see today is some of the lane reductions, or we may refer to them as a road dial. We'll reduce the lanes from 4 down to 2 lanes with turning pockets to create a consistent travel flow. That also helps to reduce the crashes and improves pedestrian safety. We also install concrete pedestrian islands, curb extensions, and rectangular rapid flashing beacons to make it safer for pedestrians to cross a busy street. We are implementing quick build traffic calming measures with temporary materials to make improvements very quickly, very rapidly, and then we'll follow those improvements up with permanent infrastructure after that evaluation. So along here at Wheeler Road, we've installed a painted and flex post medians, flex post curb extensions, and rubber left turn traffic calming measures, all of which will be replaced with permanent materials. Everyone deserves safe ways to get around here in Washington, D.C. and in this region. And by working together to solve this challenge, district residents and visitors can have what they truly deserve. And here are some things that we can all do when driving or walking that will help us to save lives. Slow down and stay alert, especially if you're driving an SUV or pickup truck. Large vehicles sit higher off the ground, so drivers, they have a harder time seeing pedestrians and bicyclists, and increasing likelihood of serious injuries or death. Always stop for pedestrians in crosswalks. When you're making a turn, check your blind spots and watch for pedestrians and bicyclists coming from both directions. And remember, people that are walking or people that are biking, they have the right of way. And if you're walking, please use a crosswalk and wait for the walk signal. So as I close, I want to thank our regional partners. Our collective efforts give other jurisdictions a shared roadmap to safety in the metropolitan area. Now I'd like to introduce Helen Harris, who is an inspirational crash survivor, who understands all too well the devastation of a crash and the impact that it had on her and her family when a driver hits a pedestrian. She's here to tell you her story. So Helen, would you please come up and join us?
Hi, thank you for inviting me today. Oh boy, it's windy. On December 13, 2018, I was taking my then 4-month-old daughter to daycare on our daily commute. We were in the crosswalk when a dump truck hit me. I pushed my daughter's stroller in front of me across the curb. Thankfully, she was unharmed. Many people ran to help us, including an ER nurse who stopped my femoral artery from bleeding. Strangers kindly soothed my baby until my parents arrived on the scene. At the hospital, the doctor said there was too much soft tissue damage to my leg. I ended up losing my left leg above the knee. I spent 1 month at the hospital, including my baby's first Christmas and New Year's, recovering from surgeries. 3 months later, I started my journey to learn to walk with a prosthetic leg. This December, it will have been 4 years since I was the victim of a traffic accident, and still, every day is challenging as I grieve for the mobility I lost and learn to adapt to my new reality. Recovery has been a long road and would not have been possible without the support of my family, friends, loved ones, and network. My accident affected my children, my spouse, family, and members of my community. I would like to take this opportunity to remind everyone to drive carefully and pay attention when you're behind the wheel. Nothing matters more than what's in front of you when you're driving. It's how we can protect each other and ensure the safety of pedestrians, cyclists, and our neighbors. Please stay alert and respect traffic safety laws and be aware of one another. I would now like to welcome Commander Jason Bagshaw from the DC Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Jason Bagshaw, a commander with the Metropolitan Police Department. The Metropolitan Police Department, alongside our law enforcement partners in the area, I'm proud to partner with Safe Street Campaign. I thank Helen for sharing her story. I know that was difficult, but her story, along with so many others, are the reason why our officers are stepping up our traffic enforcement and education of the traffic safety laws. One of the hardest parts of being a police officer is responding to a tragic crash and seeing the devastation and the impact of a bicyclist, a pedestrian, or even another driver severely injured or killed in that accident. And it's that firsthand being on the scene, it makes it very clear that lives can be shattered in an instant. The work that Street Smart is doing is so important, and we're proud to be here today helping launch the campaign. In support of the initiative, the Metropolitan Police Department, alongside our law enforcement partners in the area, will be ramping up enforcement and education of traffic safety laws by taking actions to correct the behavior of all roadway users. This enforcement and education will begin immediately and continue through December 4th. Traffic laws are in place for a reason. It's to keep everyone safe, whether they're walking, biking, driving, or even scooting around town. Our goal is to keep everyone safe. We write tickets not to inconvenience people. We write tickets to save lives. So directly following today's event, we will be conducting enforcement in the area, specifically along Wheeler Road, to showcase some of that enforcement and education. If we all do our part by looking out for one another and following the rules of the road, we can prevent stories like Helen's from happening again. At this time, Sir, yep, I'll bring you back up, sir. Yep, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander. And once again, I want to thank Eagle Academy for hosting us today. Principal LeCoyne, we appreciate your hospitality. It's now my pleasure to bring Aiden Wilkes, third grader here at Eagle Academy, to the podium. And I hope that afterwards you'll be able to wish him a happy birthday next week. Aiden will be introducing my favorite mayor. Aiden, please come to the podium.
Hello and welcome to Eagle Academy. My name is Aiden Wilkes and I am in the third grade. Thank you all for being here. We are here today to launch Street Smarts because we all want safer streets for everyone. I'd like to introduce Mr. Chuck Bean from Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments.
Let's give Aiden a big round of applause. Aiden, come here, Aiden. I'm stepping in out of order on the program. But I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm very proud that you are representing your classmates. And I'm going to speak on behalf of all 700,000 of us in Washington, D.C. for Safer Streets. So let's give Aiden another round of applause. You can have a seat, young man. So, Chuck, I want to thank you and all of the Council of Governments. I have had now a long time involvement with Street Smart, and we know how important it is for the entire region to speak in one voice. That, yes, we want to get around the region and we want to do it quickly, but it's more important to do it safely. And so I am thrilled to be here to join members of my team. And we also wanted to take advantage of this time while we're talking about street safety to also talk about a very important initiative that we've been undergoing for the last several months, and that is how we will implement infrastructure funds in the District of Columbia. In our Build Back Better task force that was co-chaired by former Secretary of Transportation Rodney Slater, and Jan Adams, has submitted a number of very important recommendations to me that take advantage of these infrastructure dollars, but focus them on how to make our streets safer. So I am happy that MPD is, of course, our partner in this work. The state of Virginia and its Director of Highways, thank you for your presence, as well as the Maryland DMV. We appreciate you. And my entire team, of course, in D.C. government, starting with Director Everett Lott at DDOT. My budget team, the city administrator, has also joined us to talk about these important efforts. I also want to just remind everybody that we, with all of the ideas that come from our very formal organizations in D.C. government and stakeholders, we're always interested in ideas from D.C. residents. These are your neighborhoods. You walk them, you drive them, you use transit on them each and every day, and your ideas matter to how we improve them. At together.dc.gov, we will be connecting transformative ideas about how to deal with some of the toughest problems that our city faces. Build Back Better Task Force was charged with developing strategies on how the district could spend our federal dollars. They were asked to think big and prioritize transformative, equitable, sustainable, and achievable investments. I gave them a very aggressive timeline, and they met it. And I have Secretary Slater, Jan Adams, Jenny Reed on my team, who was the staff director, and a number of great Washingtonians who volunteered their time to thank for that. So today I am sharing those recommendations with you. They are posted at infrastructure.dc.gov, infrastructure.dc.gov. And we know that these recommendations, I'll just give you a taste of them before you go to the website, helping us expand recreational opportunities along the Anacostia River, preparing the district for a more innovative future by expanding broadband in wards 5, 7, and 8, building on our job training programs at the DC Infrastructure Academy to include more green job training. And so those are all will be exciting investments that helps the district get to where we need to be, not only with street safety, but with also our equitable comeback. So I know that you're also particularly interested in what the transportation improvements will be. Drum roll. This is a big one. Transforming the North Capitol Street corridor into an urban boulevard that is safer and more inviting for pedestrians and bicyclists. This has been a long advocated improvement by Ward 5 residents and everyone who travels the North Capitol Street corridor or lives along the North Capitol Street corridor. We are also, this is less, flashy, but so important because the work that DDOT does to look at our high crash and high injury intersections is important. And it is so important that we prioritize and that we can explain to our constituents why we have prioritized certain corridors. And it's not necessarily the corridors that gets the most calls or the most calls for service or the most advocacy. But we know from our data that if we improve these corridors, we will save lives. And so we will expedite the redesign of 30 corridors that have been identified as high injury corridors. And that's a big one. So what we're seeing is that everything that we are talking about at COG, building safer streets, and the work of the infrastructure task force overlaps. And today in Ward 8, we know that on Wheeler Road is one of those corridors that needs our improving. It needs our engineering work. It needs our enforcement work, but it also needs that we're all educated and compliant drivers, pedestrians, and cyclers. I was here, sadly, after a little boy was struck by a vehicle, and he later died. We don't want any other families to experience that kind of tragic loss that is so avoidable. We then closed down that road for several days because we wanted to assess what we could do, but we also wanted to send the message that a child's life is more important than our convenience. And we didn't want it just to go back to normal. So we know that DDOT is very focused on this road and others, and in the past year, we've installed more than 900 speed humps in all 8 wards, added 53 new stop signs to intersections that need them, expanded traffic control officers and crossing guards by nearly 70 people, and I'm very proud of that. We've lowered speed limits on corridors like Connecticut Avenue and New York Avenue to make them safer for all who use them and using all modes. So now I just want to turn to our DDOT director to talk more about all of the DDOT's efforts to make us a safer city. Thank you, Everett. Is Everett already spoken? I'm sorry. This is what happens when you're out of order. So Everett has already given you this great news, but I will take the opportunity now to just thank all of the DC government workers at DDOT and in all of our agencies that are working on these issues. As I like to say, we're 37,000 people all across DC government agencies who are at your service, and I'm very, very proud of these teams who have worked in all conditions through the pandemic and back from the pandemic to make this a city that's safe and strong. So thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Mayor. To demonstrate that this is a regional effort, we're going from the leader of the District of Columbia to a voice from Virginia and a voice from Maryland. And Mayor, if you're available for a few minutes afterwards for questions, I think that would be appreciated. So it's now my pleasure to introduce, to represent the voice of the Commonwealth of Virginia, John Saunders. John, could you come to the podium, please?
Good morning. The mayor can never be out of order. I'll just say that, never be out of order. I was honored to have the seat beside her. She's a wonderful leader. And in highway safety, it starts with leadership from the top. And I respect her, and I respect all the work that's being done here in D.C. And she has some wonderful staff, and I've had an opportunity to work with many of them, and I respect D.C. and all that they're doing and all the work that she has put in to making these things happen to save lives. I am John Saunders, and I serve as the director of DMV's Virginia Highway Safety Office. I also want to, at this time, give thanks to all of our law enforcement and first aid responders for all of their tireless efforts and their presence here with us this morning. The Commonwealth of Virginia is committed to safety of pedestrians and cyclists on our roadways and is pleased to be here this morning, if I can keep my voice, is pleased to be here this morning to support the Regional 2022 Fall Street Smart campaign. The Virginia Highway Safety Office continues to strongly support this region-wide effort and the key role it is keeping for sharing communities safe through ongoing efforts in combined education, outreach, enforcement to reduce traffic fatalities, serious injuries of pedestrians and cyclists in our region. We urge everyone to stay alert, obey traffic laws as they walk and bike in the region and this fall and this winter. Along with the change of seasons comes the end of daylight saving times. No matter how many years we have experienced this change, it is always a little disorienting to suddenly be driving home in the dark from work during daily activities. As we all adjust to this new schedule, it's this window of time during the evening commute that is the most dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, shows that 75% of pedestrian fatalities in the U.S. occurred during the twilight and the dark. In Virginia in 2022, we have recorded 139 pedestrian fatalities. That's 34% increase over the same period in 2021. That's unacceptable. That's shattered lives, that's shattered families. That's not just the number. These lives count for 16% of the 855 traffic fatalities we have recorded this year. And as we have heard this morning, our focus must go beyond the fatalities. We must also shed our light and attention on the impact of serious injuries on the lives of the most vulnerable on our roadways. In Virginia, we have recorded 364 pedestrian serious injuries. That's 7% increase over last year. Not just a number, shattered lives and shattered families. There have been 9 bicyclist fatalities as of yesterday. That's a 36% increase over the same period in 2021. Shattered lives and shattered families. Top bicyclist contribution for fatal crashes, 56% were not wearing a helmet. My plea to our community is this: look out for one another, especially at this time of year when it's getting darker earlier and there are more distractions than usual. Let's all just slow down and let's pay attention. If you're behind the wheel, actively watch out for people walking and biking. Slow down in our neighborhoods. Stop for people in the crosswalks. Stop and be cautious when making a legal right turn on red. Never make an illegal right turn on red. Don't drive distracted. It only takes a second of inattention to shatter a life. When walking, cross at the corner and the crosswalks where available. Wear something light and reflective after dark. See and be seen. Walk facing oncoming traffic. Look both ways before you cross. And don't walk distracted. Always be aware of your surroundings. Don't walk impaired or with alcohol. If you're riding a bike, obey the rules of the road and obey the signs and signals. Always ride in the direction of traffic. Use lights at night and wear proper reflective clothing, and always wear a helmet. Lives are easily shattered. So whether you're behind the wheel or walking or biking, please be alert and pay attention and look out for each other. It is Thanksgiving. Next week, 1 week from today, a time when many family and friends come together to give thanks. Let us all give to those whose lives we encounter the gift of love and caring this holiday season by working together to get everyone home safely. Let's all be street smart. I want to thank you all for being here today. Thanks to Street Smart for the invitation, and I hope everyone to have a happy holiday season. It is now my honor to introduce, and I want to make sure I get her title right, Miss Chrissy Nizer. I'm going to invite to come. She is Maryland's Department of Transportation and Motor Vehicles Administration Administrator and Governor Hogan's Highway Safety Representative. Chrissy, I welcome you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here for this regional event on behalf of Governor Hogan, as well as our Transportation Secretary, Jim Ports. I'm proud to share Maryland's commitment to saving lives on our roadways. The Street Smart campaign is important and essential to our state as it is to our surrounding region, because in Maryland, 1 in 4 traffic deaths is a pedestrian. In 2021, we lost 573 people on our roadways. That includes 127 pedestrian fatalities. But as my colleagues have said, and as Ms. Harris has so eloquently shared, as well as the mayor, these are lives, these are human beings, these are families that are changed forever. In some cases, folks don't come home. In other cases, they have to live with the tragic consequences of someone's unsafe behavior. At some point, each and every one of us is a pedestrian, which is why we are dedicated to the effective collaboration of the 4 E's of highway safety. That includes engineering, education, enforcement, and our emergency medical services. In partnership with the M.Dot State Highway Administration, we've made pedestrian safety a top strategic initiative in Maryland, including areas that border the D.C. metro area like Prince George's and Montgomery counties, because we know that those borders are really inconsequential when it comes to highway safety. Efforts like narrowing roads to reduce speed, installing new accessible pedestrian signals, countdown pedestrian signals, and lighting enhancements are providing more protective space for pedestrians and bicyclists. By putting a focus on engineering, in addition to the education and enforcement aspects of Street Smart and Be the Driver, we can drive Maryland and our region to fewer and eventually zero fatalities. Maryland is committed to eliminating traffic fatalities as well as our serious injuries. But we know we can't do this alone. It's important for everyone to follow the traffic safety laws and to do their part to be the driver that shares the road. Sharing the road with pedestrians, bicyclists, and other motors is so important. Give 3 feet of space when you're passing the bicyclists and stop for pedestrians. Move over or slow down for all stopped vehicles who are on the shoulder. These motorists may have encountered a roadside emergency, and they might unexpectedly become a pedestrian. By looking out for everyone, we can help save lives and reach all of our goals of zero fatalities. Now it's my pleasure to turn the podium back to Chuck Beam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Snizer, and thank you to all of the speakers and guests, especially to Helen Harris for sharing your personal and moving story. Lives are shattered every day by preventable crashes. Helen's is just one of them. And the Street Smart team put together an interactive educational exhibit, which will be traveling around the region, telling the stories of area residents whose lives have been forever changed by a preventable crash. I encourage you to take time and find that interactive exhibit and read those stories. And as a reminder, I understand there will be a live enforcement demonstration by Metropolitan Police Department directly following the event at Wheeler and Varney Southeast. At this time, the event is wrapped up. However, I'd like to bring Mayor Bowser back to the podium to answer questions. After Mayor Bowser takes a few minutes, then the rest of the speakers will be available for questions on the side. Mayor Bowser.
Questions? Press questions. Yes, Mark.
First, on the infrastructure plan that you're releasing, the recommendations today, can you remind us how much money the district is allotted for this? And you listed a couple of your priorities. One of the things you didn't talk about were some of the changes recommended for some of the freeways, like 395, 295, some of the new off-ramps. And I'm just wondering...
Sure, let me ask Jenny Reed to come up, and you're specifically asking about 295 and 395? Okay.
And just the overall budget as well. How much
and the
money?
Budget.
Thank
you.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Reed. I am Mayor Bowser's Budget Director and also the Staff Director of the Infrastructure Task Force. The Task Force recommendations do include a overhaul of the 295 corridor. We are recommending that we begin to reconnect those communities that have been separated by the highway. We have in fact applied to the federal government for a planning grant to begin that work, which will include extensive community engagement. You asked about the funding, the budget for the infrastructure bill. The district is slated to receive about $3.3 billion over the next 5 years through formula funding. However, there are also about 180 different competitive grants that we will also be applying for in hopes to expand and exceed that $3.3 billion. And we've already applied for and received several awards.
Just on the budget, so according to the recommendations, some of these projects go to 2040 before completion. So how does that work if the funding only goes for 3 years? Is it just you kind of just hold on to that money, or is the money released over 20 years? Or
So what we're looking at is being able to leverage the infrastructure dollars to either accelerate, expand, or start new projects. For a lot of these projects, they are going to require some kind of local funding or other federal funding to complete. But we took the mayor's charge very seriously about recommending transformational projects for the district. And in order to do that, we're going to have to take several years and be very creative with all the funding sources. Thank you.
And what is great about this, Mark, you're right, transportation projects, they sometimes go on for a long time. So we have some short, medium, and long-term investments here. And what the president's investments, this pretty historic and bipartisan bill allows us to do is to start new projects while not pulling or, I was going to use a car metaphor, but I won't. While not delaying any of our local projects that need to get done. And in fact, we're able to speed those up too. So the 30 corridors that I mentioned have been identified as high crash and high injury corridors. So we can do those. They're not going to be delayed. In fact, they're going to be sped up, and we can start big new projects. So that's why the infrastructure bill is really so critical. But it's also going to take people to help us get that work done. Shameless plug, DC is hiring. DDOT is hiring, right? We're having, in fact, a resume raiser tonight downtown at Penn Social starting at 5 o'clock. So if you want to work for a great organization, you will have to work a lot. We do work. Join us, join DC government, join our team. Any other questions? Yes.
Off topic.
Okay.
The House has now been called for the Republicans. I know you've worked with presidents from both parties. You've worked with Houses and Senates in both parties as mayor and council. But what concerns do you have about a Republican House that has to, has oversight over the district, has oversight over the budget, and we've seen what has happened in the past. There have been threats of going after home rule, in fact, by some Republican House members. What concerns do you have now that this will become a reality next year?
Well, Mark, I think standing here today, I am a little less concerned than I was a week ago because Democrats retained the House. And Republicans, while they won Democrats retained the Senate. And while the Republicans have won, and they have chairmanships, and they can use those chairmanships to do destructive things, we know that we have a very significant backstop in the Senate and with the White House. So our job is to stay the course, to continue to try to work with people where we can find common ground, even in the new House majority. We also will support our Congresswoman who has had a lot of success with both Republican-led and Democratic-led House of Representatives. So we're going to continue to be D.C., to let them know who we are, what we're not, and continue to balance our budgets, pass our laws, and implement the will of D.C. residents. Yes.
I have one other off-topic question. I don't know if Commander Bagshaw is available for questions here, but as recently as your election night victory party, there were protesters calling for you to fire him, calling him a killer. Before that, there were protesters in front of Chief Conte's house, painting his name on the sidewalk in front of Chief Conte's house. I'm just wondering if you would address those concerns, if he would address those concerns that some citizens have about him being on the force.
I'm happy to have you talk to the Chief of Police, Mark, but needless to say, people have an ability to peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights. And I think Aiden had a question. Oh, that's so sweet. Yes, absolutely. I just got a lunch invitation. Aiden asked me to have lunch with his classmates. I have an idea. Maybe you all can come down to City Hall and have lunch. How's that? You want to come down to City Hall? He said good. So you heard it here. 3rd grade lunch at City Hall. And I'll turn the mic back over to Chuck B.
So thank you all for joining us today. This event has concluded. Speakers, if you can make yourself available for any questions right in this area. Thank you, everybody, and stay safe.